Welcome to Who's in STEM. I'm Ken Ono, your host and the STEM advisor to the Provost and the Marvin Rosenblum Professor of Mathematics at UVA. Our goal is to evoke flights of imagination and wonder by showcasing the cornucopia of all that is STEM at UVA. The marvelous world of UVA science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now today we have a fun show because today we're talking about tomorrow, the future. Now Hollywood loves the future, and sometimes they get it right. Stanley Kubrick's 1960s epic, 2001: A Space Odyssey, well, they got a lot right. The film correctly predicted iPad-like tablets and video chat capability. The 1970s film Star Trek: The Motion Picture, well, they had communicators. Think the smartphones of today. And just a few years later, one of my favorites was Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. That film captured our attention with a dark dystopian image of the future, populated with brilliant electric billboards. Something like the modern-day Times Square and the streets of Tokyo. But let's be honest, Hollywood prognosticators get a lot terribly wrong. According to the Back to the Future films, we should be flying cars and giving hoverboards as birthday gifts. And relevant for our conversation today, James Cameron's blockbuster 1991 film, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, well, I think they got a lot wrong, or at least so we hope. Right, in that film, humanity teeters on the brink of extinction when an army of AI-powered Terminator robots try to take over the world. Now, could that possibly be our future? Well, we're excited today to welcome Deans Christa Acampora and Phil Bourne for a conversation about all things today and tomorrow. Christa Acampora is the Dean of the College and Graduate School of Arts and Sciences at UVA, and Phil Bourne is the Dean and the founding Dean of the School of Data Science. So we're delighted to have and hear their perspectives and plans for the future. Christa, Phil, welcome to Who's in STEM.
Many thanks, Ken. This is a great topic, and I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks, Ken. Looking forward to it.
So, Phil, I'll lead off with you. A lot has been going on with the School of Data Science. Congratulations with the approval of the Bachelor's of Science program. So you have to plan for the future like now. What are we doing at UVA to plan for the future?
Well, this is a conversation, as you know, we've all been having, and it really is an exciting time. And I think a lot of us have thought about it in light of what's happened quite recently with the emergence of large language models and ChatGPT and these kind of tools and the impact that they've had on us in a very short period of time. And we've reacted to that. In fact, we've had somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction, as everybody has had, because this all happened so quickly. So the question is, well, we've been reactionary to that. Could we be actionary? Could we get out in front of some of these things? Could we actually sit down and, as we are now, begin to talk about what this future might look like and then work backwards to offer advice to the leadership on the kind of things we should be doing today? And Jim Ryan, the president, and Ian Borcom, the provost, have been very supportive in what we're trying to do.
Christa, you're the Dean of the Arts and Sciences. For many of us, it's the image of what has historically been the University of Virginia. So your thoughts, share with us your thoughts. What is UVA planning for the future?
There's plenty we're doing at UVA to plan for the future. You might say that higher education has always been future-oriented because we're preparing future leaders and scouting the frontiers of research, inquiry, and creative activity. But I do think now is an important moment, and we truly are at a unique crossroads. There's a complexity and urgency to the problems we face today and on a global scale, even as we can acknowledge and recognize there might be some radically differential impacts. Just to give a few examples of these shared and interconnected challenges, think of the erosion of our democratic institutions and the circuits of trust that are essential for sustaining them. The inevitability of changes in global climate that will impact where people will live and how they will make a living. Demands for the realization of social justice, massive public health challenges as we've all just experienced with the pandemic, and the explosion of data and artificial intelligence that are transforming the worlds of work and many dimensions of our social lives. So these developments will challenge fundamental category distinctions that have guided our reflection and informed our decision-making and bases for collective action. More than ever before, we need the critical, intellectual, analytical, and creative resources that universities collect.
I like what you said, Christa, that at a university is a place where we are focused on the future. We are training young minds, the future leaders. Those are beautiful words, and I hope the audience really takes that to heart because, the University of Virginia is a special place. We strongly believe in Thomas Jefferson's original vision of the university, and through your work, both as deans, you have a lot of good news to offer. So I hope everyone takes that to heart. Phil, Dean of School of Data Science. What is big data? I know it's always been in the air, but it's probably a good place to start. Tell us about big data, large language models, AGI. Not everybody knows what the letters A, G, and I stand for. Tell us about that and how these entities will be impacting higher education.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's really important to say that behind all of that it's pretty obvious, but it's actually digital data. And the volume and the veracity and the variety of that data is really what's driving all of this. So the fact that because the large language models, as you mentioned, are all trained on large data sets. So there's just this opportunity that we have because we were frankly, the first school of data science in the country. So I think leveraging that capability as we're doing together across grounds is really important. The notion of what they are, let's start with artificial general intelligence, AGI. Right? So I think AI was overhyped for a long time, and in some ways, the latest versions are a little overhyped as well. We're not at the point of really having general intelligence yet. What we are at the point of is the notion of passing the Turing test. Alan Turing was a famous computer scientist that many people have heard of, who really put forward this test of when you would actually be able to tell that you were talking to a computer or whether you were talking to a human being. We've clearly passed that test. In fact, it happens whenever you get on some kind of site where you're trying to actually order something or do something and you want to talk to a human, more than likely you're talking to a robotic voice that's automatically generated. What we haven't got to yet is what I would call personalized. So in other words, the responses you get, when you use ChatGPT, for example, you're getting a response which is, generally speaking, pretty useful, but it's not actually tailored to you. And if you think about exactly what happened with search was the same. When search started, it wasn't tailored to you. When they built up enough information about you, then your search results were tailored. Also, your advertisements were tailored. So as the volume, the big data, the personalized human big data on all of us increases, we're going to see much more personalized models reflected back to us so that, frankly, we'll get to a point where it may be very difficult to tell that you're having a conversation that's not with someone in your family or a close friend or relative.
So, Phil, thank you. That I think is the image of the optimal future. But there have to be some guardrails, right? When you get personalized advertisements on Facebook, isn't that a source of concern? How do we put up the right guardrails?
I mean, this is exactly why I'm excited to be here with Christa today, because the notion of the human in the loop, the humanities aspect of what we do together with respect to the college and beyond the college and data science, but it's really the notion of how the STEM fields and the humanities all work together to really address the kind of concerns you're raising. Because, frankly, we haven't done a particularly good job with the emergence thus far with respect to social media. I do get a sense that there's a little more guardrails being put in place. The recent White House announcement in support of how AI should be developed as an example of that. So I think we're on a potentially, and I'm always an optimist, on a better trajectory.
Christa, turning to you, we need to educate and mentor students differently in the future. how do we plan to go about figuring out what that will look like moving forward?
Well, while we might not yet be at a point where we are realizing artificial general intelligence, I do think we're witnessing what I believe is just the beginning of a transformation of our social, cultural, and professional lives, and that it's absolutely unlike anything we've seen in human history. At the risk of hyperbole, thank you, Phil. I see this because I think the proliferation and enhanced capabilities of generative artificial intelligence are going to result in new ways of organizing and engaging in work, new business opportunities, new job creation and obsolescence, new products and services, new forms of research and discoveries. Those changes will impact our own operations at the university and the worlds that our students enter after they graduate. Just consider for a minute, the World Economic Forum released 2 reports this year on the future of work, and they predict that 23% of global jobs will change in the next 5 years alone, mainly due to transformations to industries resulting from applications of artificial intelligence. But even more than that, analyses of the labor market as a whole show that 62% of total work time across all sectors involves language-based texts. Just tasks. Just think about that for a minute. So the potential for large-scale automation resulting from advanced capabilities of these large language models and for significant modification of work activity, that's undeniable. The conditions can and have been described in terms of imminent transformation.
That's all absolutely true. Speaking to the use of AI here at UVA, J.J. Davis, who's the executive vice president of the financial operations at UVA, she's assembled a very strong steering committee looking into how to introduce AI across university operations. So tomorrow is today. Today is tomorrow. This is happening, and it is happening right now. So, Phil, you're building this new undergraduate program, the BS in the School of Data Science. So a natural question that comes to my mind is, how will you design your curriculum with your faculty so that it's relevant and forward-looking and not in danger of being rapidly outpaced by advancing technology?
Well, the truth is, of course, with data science, that this fear of outpacement has been there since the beginning, in the sense that
you're accustomed to running fast.
Yeah, and the way we're dealing with it is, first of all, in principle, I think we need to immediately accept the fact that a lot of the developments in these technologies and capabilities are not happening in academia. So the idea that we bring professors of practice and we bring people from the private sector and from government and other places to actually be part of our programs and really indicate to the students and teach the students in some of the techniques and applications that are actually happening in the real world.
So I'm intrigued by this. Partnerships with industry. Can you give some examples of some partnerships that you've cultivated that benefits our students?
Yes. I mean, we have a very close relationship, for example, with Capital One.
Yeah.
Capital One will tell you that they're a data science company, that all of the decisions that they make vis-a-vis finance is based on data and analysis of that data. How that's manifest is we're in a new building which will open in April. We'll have a corporate commons, and we'll have a number of partners actually resident in the building. So they will actually be able to come and spend time with us, interact with our students, interact with our faculty. So that's just one way. We hold events with them, and numerous other examples of companies that we're interacting with. But that's one of them. The last point I wanted to make about how we deal with this rapidly changing environment brought about by data science and AI is research. And we're really putting a lot of emphasis on research in the school because, and partly it's my own background as a researcher primarily, is the interrelationship, the virtuous cycle that happens between doing research and teaching the students. So what I mean by that is that to do research, you have to be on the cutting edge of these technologies and capabilities. So you pass that on to the students. And then, of course, the students get interested, and they then, of course, undertake a lot of the work, which then flows back to the faculty. And so you've created this virtual cycle that keeps you, as far as possible, up to date.
Speaking of research, so Christa, I'd like to circle back to some comments that you made with regard to how AI tools will fundamentally change the world, and in particular, how we do research. So how has the philosophy of intellectual inquiry changed, and how will UVA adapt?
Well, Ken, these changes are already challenging some fundamental notions of large-scale distinctions that we draw between the natural and artificial, the human and the non-human, and other significant category distinctions that, for the greatest part of human history, have been important for how human beings have thought about their places in their communities, countries, world, and universe. Take, for example, the emergence of synthetic biology. This is a multidisciplinary field that has developed with the advancement of technology. It takes our understanding of living systems and organisms and applies engineering principles and new technologies to develop new biological parts, devices, and even whole systems. Developments in synthetic biology could enable us to create new forms of life. These advancements are going to force us to confront a host of practical, moral, and political problems that we've not had in the past. To understand, adapt, and solve these problems, we're going to need the critical tools and perspectives that are inherent in the university. With the rise of artificial intelligence, we will still need human intelligence.
Natural intelligence. We should be promoting NI.
Exactly. I think we're going to have a more capacious understanding of what is human, more than human, and humane.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. Artificial intelligence programs like ChatGPT, they are assistants. They are meant to assist us in our work and be amplifiers, multipliers. So I do want to strongly promote the need for natural intelligence, NI. I'd like to circle back to you, Phil, with regard to partnerships. So you briefly talked about industrial partners, but as I understand it, and I think you'll strongly agree, the School of Data Science plays an important role as a hub for interdisciplinary work. It's one of your missions, right, here at UVA. Tell us about how the future of the School of Data Science meshes well with interdisciplinary research overall.
Yes, as you say, Ken, the notion of us as a school without walls is something that we really believe in, and we've been pushing on since the beginning. And
but I will say you have some brand new walls that look quite beautiful.
What was amusing is when I first said that in front of a poster, when we were we were doing what's called the tree topping, which is when the steel shell of the building is there. We didn't have any walls, so it was absolutely true at that point. But we now have walls. So what can I say? But the door's always open. What can I? That's the point. And data science is really an integral part of everything now that's going on in the university across, everything from religious studies to economics to business to the typical STEM fields and biomedicine and synthetic biology, without question, something close to my own heart. So, I think what we want to do is to try and create and be a partner in that kind of ecosystem. So the way it works, I hope, and I already see signs of this working, which makes me so excited, is that really all we become is a hub of exchange of best practice between, for example, what might be a development in AI that's going on it could be in any of the disciplines I just mentioned. And that then gets transferred into another discipline where normally these people would not meet. But the data and the methods are the commonality, the glue that brings these folks together.
So, Christa, Phil, today's podcast is about more than just philosophizing about the future. What are we doing about it here at UVA? It was recently announced at Datapalooza that Ian Balcom, the the Provost, and President Ryan are supporting something called the Futures Initiative that the three of us are championing here. Phil, what is the Futures Initiative?
It's an effort to get out, as I said earlier, to get out in front of what is sure to come. So rather than reacting to something when it's already here, let's sit down, bring in a group of futurists who spend a lot of time thinking about this, as do some of us here, group with the people that we have here, have discussions about what this future might look like as it relates to higher ed in particular, and really make some projections and come up with essentially a way of going back to the leadership of the university and saying, this is what we should be doing to meet this future. As you pointed out with respect to all the movies you mentioned at the beginning, I always think about 2001 when I watch that now, and there's a big advert essentially for Pan Am, which of course went out of business a long time ago. And he's calling from a phone in a phone box, which seems a bit... So, this just proves how hard it is to make these predictions, because they didn't predict that for 2001, but they predicted, as you point out, a whole bunch of things that never eventuated. So clearly it's not an easy task, but I do believe if we do this, and we do it through town halls and podcasts and really just promote the ideas and get feedback and get pushed down and get built up, that we feed something back to the leadership to act upon that will put us in a better place in the future than we would otherwise be.
So, Christa, what will the Futures Initiative produce?
Well, as Phil was just explaining, this initiative arises from a vision to tackle the challenges that we've been discussing and bringing together the full intellectual power of the university across disciplines. So I think this includes creating a community of researchers, scholars, and creative workers who understand the interface between these emergent technologies and their impacts on human health, law and social justice, business and free enterprise, and the arts and humanities. Phil and I have been jointly recruiting faculty to join the many people at UVA who are already working in these areas. And so I think through these convenings of town halls, other forms of communication, we'll really be able to amplify that. I expect that the Futures Initiative is also going to support our faculty as they develop and refine our academic programs to equip all of our students with the skills to understand their place and possibilities to thrive in this technology-driven world.
Right. So the Futures Initiative will be a collection of events. There'll be forums where people can get together and share ideas. There'll be visiting futurists. I think we've talked about bringing in distinguished leaders from the media, from university leadership, well-known university presidents, among others. And so for the listeners, keep an eye out for these activities. Look for invitations to town hall meetings. And hopefully by the time that we're done, we'll have a set of recommendations, maybe a list of best practices, certainly some case studies. Christa, Phil, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
I'll just say that I hope one of the key outcomes of the Futures Initiatives, Ken, is that we are engaging the full swath of our community, that we're helping to create a future-thinking mindset among our faculty, our staff, and especially our students.
The future is here. I look out into the classroom and I see it in those eyes in front of me every day. So it's really is an exciting time, and they will carry it forward for us.
And the future looks really young, right?
Well, everybody looks really young to me.
Well, Christa, Phil, you are both fulfilling President Ryan's vision for UVA to be great and good in all that we do. Thank you for your dedication of positioning the university for a bright and successful future. I'm Ken Ono, STEM advisor to the Provost and the Marvin Rosenblum Professor of Mathematics, and you've been listening to Who's in STEM.
Who's in STEM is a production of WTJU 91.1 FM and the Office of the Provost at the University of Virginia. Who's in STEM is produced by Catherine Kossaboom, Claire Curzan, Ria Verma, Mary Garner-McGee, and Ariane Ballou. Our music is composed and performed by Robert Schneider and John Ferguson of Apples in Stereo. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen and subscribe to Who's in STEM on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with another conversation about scientific and technological innovation at the University of Virginia.